Good morning.
Hey, welcome back. How you doing, Dr. Laura?
I'm doing great. How about you, Jeff? You're a
Good.
busy guy, huh?
Yeah, so this is round two. We're right on time, 10 o'clock. If some of you were actually going to the page at CSL, we've had a little bit of a funky thing going on with the kind of the web traffic today. I changed that last night, and then just about 3 minutes before we went live, 4 minutes before we went live, we just kind of went to the page and it's like, oh my gosh, it still said yesterday's stuff on there. So even though it updated, it didn't update, so it should be there now. I'm just going to pop over there real quick, Dr. Laura, and make sure we
Yeah.
are there. I'll be darned, we are there. Good,
Okay.
good. And let me make sure that's playing. Yep, everything is good. All right.
All right.
So round two, huh?
Good.
So we got to, last Friday we got to know a little bit more about you, and I want to start off today by something that happened just recently. You put a post out for I call it Daily Inspirational Messages. Center for Spiritual calls it Dial an Idea. I just think of like they were very inspirational. But you put something out that said, basically you were saying that it's when you give away your power, that's when you're more powerful. Would you mind kind of taking some time and kind of tell us what really inspired you to write that, and how we're supposed to how would you like us to ideally receive that?
Well, what inspired me is we're working on our 2021 campaign, coming up with new ideas as far as that. And I found, actually it was Jim Fortin. He had a picture of a sculpture that he loves, and what it is it's by, if anyone wants to look, I think it's called Giving Hands, but it's by an artist called Lorenzo Quinn, and it's a circle. It's a circle, but it shows two hands, and one is the hand that's giving, and the other hand is receiving. So it shows that what you give comes back to you. So that's it. If you want to have power or be empowered, then empower somebody else. It's that law of reciprocity. Whatever you put out, then you're telling the universe, this is what I'm giving. Then the universe says, oh, well, I got to fill you back up and give it back to you. So the more love you give, then now, because the universe does not like a void. And so when you give that out, it has to come back. And it comes back even more so that you have, oh, this person likes to give this. So let me give that individual, that soul, more of it. So it's kind of that law of reciprocity. And instead of hoarding everything, it's like being Scrooge. Look at Scrooge, how happy and how his life transformed once he started giving.
It reminds me of an example where there was this young man on a trail. Imagine you're walking on a trail and it's on the edge of the coast. And, sometimes on the coast, Dr. Laura, when you're walking on those trails, it can be a pretty sheer drop off.
Yes.
And this gentleman started to slip. And when he slipped, as he's starting to go down the mountain, he grabbed a root of a tree sticking out, and he's just hanging there. And he heard this booming voice that said, just let go and I'll save you. And his response was, is there anybody else up there? And I think that's where we sometimes struggle, is we want that solid data, that evidence that we can touch and feel. But the universe isn't always like that, is it? How can we get past that? Is there somebody else up there mentality?
Right. Well, it reminds me of that joke of being the flood. There's a flood and a man's on top of his roof and he says, God, please help me, save me, God, save me. And people come by and go, come on, Jeff. He goes, no, I'm waiting for God, and then a helicopter comes and wants to help him. No, I'm waiting for God. And then he dies and says, God, I was waiting for you. He said, well, I sent you this, and you didn't do it. And so I think, Jeff, that's when our faith, we just have to move in faith. We have to move forward going, if you think about it, every second is fine. It's when we awfulize and we project into the future that, oh, right now I don't have this, but you really have everything you need in this second, this moment. And so you have to go from that, knowing, that it's going to come back. It's your fear then that blocks that good, that doubt. It's what blocks it from showing up in your life. You can't even see it at that point sometimes because you're so in fear.
Well, you did not, and you said it last week. If you missed it, please stop me if I'm misquoting you. Is you did not start out to become a minister at CSL, and yet you just kept going. Why?
Well, something I didn't share with you last week was one of the times I went to Ashland, Oregon to be with Neil Donald Walsh. He invited me up there because he wanted me to report a PBS special. He was doing an interview of Barbara Marx Hubbard, and he was doing this interview with her, and I reported it and got to spend time listening to them off camera, just talking and sharing. And she did this ceremony that she said she had visioned, and it was like the Last Supper, breaking bread. And I'm sitting there thinking, what am I doing here? Deepak Chopra, somebody else that should be here, but what am I doing here in this? So after she finished this ceremony, she said, okay, let's just all go and just meditate. So I remember I went off by myself and I'm meditating, and Neil had all this land. He had a beautiful place. And I found a spot and I just sat and I was meditating. And I'm like, God, what am I doing here? I mean, asking those same questions. Why isn't there some other great spiritual leaders for me to be involved in this ceremony? And what came to me was the voice was my child. It's like, think of my disciples. You are here to learn. Keep learning, keep growing, and you'll know what to do with it. And so that's what it was. I was searching, and I was, I was really looking for answers. And one time when I was at Neil's, he had in his bathroom a bunch of Science of Mind magazines, the monthly. And I go, what is this? I mean, I was so not looking for this teaching, but I kept searching. And that's like I shared last week when I was told that there was a church that taught these spiritual principles in Palm Desert. That was the end of August that I learned this. I came back from Oregon, and the next week I went to the center and saw Dr. Tom. And the following week they were starting classes, and I signed up, and I've never left.
Wow. That's really cool. Hey, before we get too deep into today, because we got a little bit of a rocky start there with some internet issues, I just want to reach out and say thank you for the people that are here right now. I can see there's Arlene is here, helpful civilian, love that, cool one, curious human, Annette, thank you for joining us. Guest 9940321, helpful citizen, cool human, cautious character, and I love this one because it's so appropriate what you just said. The pondering newbie. So thank you so much for joining us today. We'll appreciate it. Hey, if you have questions for Dr. Laura or comments about what we're talking about, or just a question in general, I'm not sure you can get anybody more qualified. I should say that all of our ministers are extremely qualified to answer questions, but now is the time to ask these questions. Very interactive. We want you to participate because this is not about us. Even though we're talking to Dr. Laura and she's sharing some insights of how she got to where she's at, this is about you. This is about supporting you as a community and why we're doing this 7 days a week. We wouldn't have to do this except it's about you. So, okay, so let's get back to it. So it sounds like then these teaching actually found you. It's almost like that saying is, hey, don't ignore that potential beggar on the street because it may be that sign. And in your case, it was a spiritual, what was it? Science of Mind magazine in someone's bathroom, right?
Yeah, well, and I went to church with Neil, to a church. I didn't know that there were churches that believed in these spiritual principles,
So you started, so you, and I want to, and so this is really cool because now the next person who just joined us is Jolly Newcomer. So you were a Jolly Newcomer with Neil Donald Walsh. Come on, Neil Donald Walsh. And you went to church and you were like, were you really surprised? Were you apprehensive when you first walked in? Like, geez, what am I going to do?
No, I wasn't apprehensive at all because at that time, I think I was up to book two or three in Conversations with God. And in fact, did I share how I found the book?
No, you didn't.
Oh, okay. So I was on my journey. I had been going to that lady in San Diego who taught me some spiritual principles and where I got my vision of what my life was supposed to be. So, and I didn't even know if that was like, oh, that sounds nice. But I didn't really know. And so anyway, I was in Costco on a Saturday doing my chores, going shopping, and I always like to go by the bookstore or the book section. And I saw this Conversations with God book too. And I thought, oh, it's kind of interesting. Let's throw that in the cart and give me something to read tonight, my big Saturday night. And so I did all my chores Saturday, and it was nighttime, and I get in bed with my book and I'm reading. And I got to chapter 2. I don't remember what it was. I literally got out of bed and was on my knees sobbing because it was like, oh my God, these things that have been inside of me about what I believe about God and spirit, because I wasn't buying into everything that I was being taught in my previous religion as Catholicism. I was still going to Mass on Sundays because I had children in Catholic school and stuff. And, but I was like, oh my gosh. And so that's kind of what started it, was really, that's when I joined Neil's club or whatever it was. And that's how I got to Sedona. And then everything happened from there, you know. But and it was in that meditation with Barbara Marks Hubbard, I think I shared last week, where I thought, oh my God, you know, if I'm the light and I'm supposed to be learning, why am I being a court reporter? Because I'm, like I said, I'm feeding off of the misery of other people. But then after I got connected with Neil and I was reporting stuff for Barbara Marks Hubbard, I did another thing with him and Marianne Williamson and the Jampolskys. I thought, I'm a light wherever I go. And we're all lights wherever we go. Whatever we're doing, when we're trying to give or to help each other, we are that light.
Well, you know, it's interesting because it's like, I think of this, and I've used this so many times in my life. It said, you know, if you want to get someplace in your life, find somebody who's already there and then learn from them. And it sounds to me like, you know, when you said, hey, you were searching, you really weren't where you wanted to be in your life, that the universe started lining up all these things and put you in a situation where first it was work, right? You went there to do some transcribing,
Yes.
right? And then it started lining things up for you to see this was the answer. And it reminds me of the saying is, you know, everything is energy. I think Raymond Charles Barker, you know, that was my aha moment, when everything is energy, but everything was created or is created twice, right? But
Mhm.
it's all God, it's all good. So it's like, if we can look past the fact that that booming voice up there and I don't see anybody and it wants me to let go of a bush, that really is all good, all God. And that's where we say, that's where we put our faith out there.
Yes.
And so I think about this and I think, okay,
Well, how did you find the center?
I just drove around till I crashed into a car. No. You know, we had been, and this is not about me, so I'm going to make this real quick. We were driving and we saw on Portola where it says something. I think it was, gosh, who's the
Like
guy?
Deepak Chopra had been here or one of those
It wasn't
signs?
Deepak. It was, who's the other guy? With the really hard to understand accent. His book, I can see it from a distance, but I can't read the title. Anyway, it was there, and it was the Book of Now, or who is that wrote
Oh,
that?
Eckhart Tolle book?
Eckhart Tolle, yeah. Yeah, Eckhart Tolle, there was a sign up there with that. And it was something at that time. I think my wife Carmen was reading that and I wasn't. It was just so difficult for me to read. And she's so much smarter and prettier than I am.
And
So
prettier, definitely.
yeah, so it makes sense. Anyway, that's how we found it. But what I'm curious to know is what kind of things started changing in your life as you look back? Because sometimes it's like we don't see our kids growing when we're right there in the forest with them, right? But when we're away from it and then look at it again and say, wow, there were some interesting changes as you reflect back. Can you reflect back? Because I think it'll help those people watching that maybe they're still in the forest, that you
Right.
say, these are the things that changed in my life, whether it's a relationship, it's a job, it's health, whatever it might be.
I think what it was for me was it gave me comfort. It gave me comfort into knowing that I have more power over my life. I can create a different life, that not to focus on what I don't have. Because at that time, my children were small, like I said, and I separated from my husband and and it was like this new birth. It was almost like if I think about it, it just came to my head. It was like my grandchildren, how everything is like new and shiny. Well, that's how I was with these spiritual teachings. I had been listening to a lot of CDs of Marianne Williamson, and of course, somehow it just resonated with my soul. Was my life where I wanted it to be? No, it wasn't. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't. There was this deep hole in my soul, and so I just knew that if I kept studying, and I found the teachers, found the wisdom, that I knew it was out there, and the answers were out there, and I just kept searching, and that's why I was just like a sponge taking up all these classes, and they just filled me, and my life was more at peace. Was everything perfect? No, but it was getting better, and it
Mhm.
was getting better, and so I just kept with it. I kept with it, and it was fun meeting at the center and in my classes other people too that were searching and weren't there yet, but we were all on this journey. I mean, that's really I met that's how I met Dr. Joe, Reverend Miriam, we're through these classes, and and they became friends, and it was like we were just taking this journey, and we were all expanding.
Do me a favor, because it's really kind of vague when you say, was my life perfect? No, but it was better. Give us an example. Was it you processed situations differently and you were calmer, or was it you just had people that had more like-minded thoughts that allowed you to grow there and be supportive? Kind of share that information.
Well, I think, okay, so what it was there wasn't the chaos in my head, the worry, like the awfulizing, like, oh my God, or, like, oh my God, am I going to be able to do this? And how am I going to do that? And da, 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 da. It was like I relaxed, knowing that I'd be taken care of through the classes. And it did. It's like things didn't upset me as much. What really, and I kind of always had this, but even more so, it was, and I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing, but I wasn't as judgmental of my children.
Mm.
I did, like my two sons are so different. My one son, Ryan, so neat, and my other son, Corey, was just a slob, and I had to put him in different rooms, and I would, I'd get mad. You need to, and finally I just said, you know what? Just keep your door closed. If you want to live in that, then go ahead, but I just don't want to see it. So it was just the way I dealt with things better. And now he's a neat freak and stuff, but I didn't make him wrong or create that negative energy. It was even with their grades. I used to and they were good students, but I remember my dad, if I had straight A's but I had a B, he never focused on the A's, it was the B. Why did you get that B? What's wrong with you? Or what? And it's like, I didn't do that with him. I would tell him, we would drive by COD, and you know how they were selling house, they have a clown out there twirling and saying the house is that way. I said, if you don't study, that's a job you can have. So I just relaxed, I guess. I really just relaxed, and my business did well. And that was, and my business had been like in the 80s before they had tort reform. It was every month we were increasing by, 10% or whatever. And we were doing really well. And then things changed and it started dropping, and so my income had dropped too through all this. But I did fine. And I have to tell you, and I'll be honest with you guys, when the crash happened with the economy, with the real estate market, I lost my house. They foreclosed on my house, and I rented, and but it was like I never was upset about it. Here I had lost all that money I'd put for a down payment, and so forth. And I had, I had nothing. And I mean, by then I think I was already a minister. But that's what I'm saying. This teaching, I didn't like, woe is me. I found a place right away. I loved it. I rented it. I was saving money. It was a good deal.
Mm.
And because I thought, do you really ever own it? I mean, I'm just paying rent. What's the difference? Then, I'm just paying rent to the bank, and. And so I guess it just made me start looking at life differently and being grateful.
Yeah. Hey, I want to reach out to the folks that are watching, and I'd love your participation on this, because I bet you there are some people in here, like Russ and Dee, as an example, that they have known Dr. Laura for a long time. I would be curious if you wouldn't mind giving us an example of what you've noticed over the years of Dr. Laura in her change. If you've known her for a while, if you've known her for the last 10 or 15 years and you've noticed these kind of things that are a positive change in Dr. Laura, I'd love to hear that. The other thing I'd love to hear is, this is always fun, is where are you tuning in from? We have people from all over the country, and some people, we have one person, Dr. Laura, who had joined us when we were doing our live streaming. They're from South America. And I remember back in the booth where we'd be doing the live streaming from, they would comment on YouTube, and that's how they were learning their English, and they were enjoying growing their faith and spirituality. So it's kind of cool to see where everybody's at. So if you do me a favor, just real quickly, jot down either A, what do you notice about Dr. Laura? How is she different now than, maybe when you first met her, and where are you from? We really appreciate that. Dr. Laura,
I'm better.
I won't read those if they say, well, she's become, yeah. No.
Okay.
You mentioned about your business, because you have a full-time business, and it's not uncommon for someone who's a minister at a church to also have another profession. What did you notice? Did you notice anything different in the way you approached? And I know the answer because I've asked you this before privately, but I'd love for other people to hear this. What did you notice when it came to handling business? Because let's face it, you're a court reporter. People are not in court because they're celebrating wins. It's usually some garbage, right? So what did you notice?
Well, what I did notice is that, I mean, okay, I'll give you an example. There was a client.
No names now.
No names. There was a client that every time I would go take a deposition, or my reporters would take a deposition, he would say, oh, this is my reporter, and she's the most expensive, but I use her because she's so pretty. And so finally one day I said, Mr. Smith, if that's the only reason you use us, I really think you should start looking for another agency. I'd prefer you to, and because my reporters were commenting and it was making them uncomfortable. And so I said that, and he did stop saying that. I just, I would rather, if there was a client that was disrespecting or rude or treating our reporters badly, I would say, I'm sorry, we no longer will work for you. But on the other hand, like I said, I would try to go to my depositions and be this light for everybody in that room, you know, to not be judging, but knowing there's his truth, there's her truth, and in the middle is the truth. And it's kind of like the world right now. You know, we all have our perspectives, and from our worldview, we're all right. We're all have the we just see things differently because of what's in our subconscious mind and so forth. So my business, and I still have clients that I've had since, you know, the early 80s that are still loyal clients. Even though I sold my business now and I work for the corporation that bought us, but I'm still like a manager for this district. So I still treat, I want my employees respected. And I think I did that because I just don't want anybody to be demeaned or be less than, because we're all special and we're all doing what's right. And if I have a reporter that I don't think is working out or is not treating people properly, then I won't use them. You know, I'll talk to them, and but there's other places that they can work.
So was that different whenever you were able to say, "Hey, this isn't working for me, and I'd rather you go"? Was that always like that, or was there a point where you said, "Hey, I've got to have every client because hey, I've got to feed my family and keep my house in order"? Was there ever that time, or was that always your mindset? Because if it was always your mindset, there was never a shift. I'm looking for
Yeah,
those
no,
shifts.
and I think that was always, I guess what happened, what really happened was I kind of think that was at the core of who I always was. That's why I went into business, because I didn't like the way I'd been treated in the corporate world, and I wanted to create business differently. And I think that what happened was when I started studying, I knew that I was on the right path, that I had that right consciousness. And so what it did was it just taught me that I could even use it in more areas of my life, not just my business, but now I could, okay, don't worry then about your personal life or your children or your finding, you know, it was, it was everything. Even when the business went bad and we were making less money, I recognized, but I'm fine. And I always had enough. It was never like I didn't go out. I didn't have food. And when I lost my house, I found a place to rent right away. And it all, I was never afraid.
Mm.
But I do think it was because, you know, you start thinking, am I being Pollyanna when things, you know, when I, during that period before when I was searching, am I just like, Laura, you need to get real? You know, you're living in this woo woo land. But the teachings taught me that no, Laura, there's something within you that's right. I remember when I first started with Neil, I think I was already taking classes at the center at this point. It was in 1999, and remember how everybody was afraid that the end of the world practically in 2000, the computers, or this was going to happen, that was going to happen. And so Neil called me up there because, and I don't remember who the people were. It was a husband and wife. They were spiritual, and they were writing a book about what was going to happen in 2000 and how we were all going to have to live in communal places with the food and and we took a whole day, and I'm writing this stuff and I'm going, oh my God, you know. And Neil's asking, and so the next day we start up again, and I go, okay. I said, you know, I'm nobody, but I just need to say something. And Neil chaffed, Laura, don't say you're nobody. And I said, well, I mean, I'm not like spiritual, you know, people that you guys people look up to.
This is before you were a spiritual gangster.
This is before I was a spiritual gangster. I think I maybe by 19 by 2000 I was already taking classes. I might have even been in practitioner class. I'm not sure. But I said, you know, if we believe in positive living, why would we be writing a book that's going to instill fear? I said, why are we focusing on something terrible happening versus, no, don't be afraid. Everything's going to be fine. They changed the whole dialogue. And it's all of a sudden the lights went on in Neil's eyes and they changed the whole thing. And it never really even got published or anything. But it was like, I'm sitting there and I was just, my skin was crawling, hearing all this what doom and gloom. And so I think that's what we have to do in life, especially even now, not believe that everything is going to work out, whatever it is. It might not work out the way you think it might, but whatever happens, it's for a divine purpose.
Yeah. Before we keep going, to catch your breath there, I just want to mention a couple of folks here that tuned in. Arlene, thank you. She's joining us from Eugene, Oregon. And she says, Laura, the growing of your unique, passionate confidence and choosing to share that with us, it does shine. That's
Oh,
very nice. Very nice. Thank you, Arlene. And Russ and Dee say, we love you, Dr. Laura Maya Angelou. Those that learn should teach, those that gets should give. I love that.
that's
Um,
beautiful.
here's one that's a little bit longer. This is from Happy Bean. Thank you so much for joining us today. Do you have any tips on coping with health issues and overcoming the feeling that you're causing your own issues? Our teachings say we receive what we put out, but sometimes there's a fine line between that and blaming yourself. For example, if you live an extremely healthy lifestyle, eat right, exercise, pray daily, meditate, etc., but continue to have serious health issues, any advice on how to move towards acceptance without feeling like it's your fault? Well, that's a great question, Happy Bean. We really appreciate that. Let's turn that. Let's give that over to Dr. Laura. And thank you also for other comments. We really appreciate that. Keep them coming.
Yeah, here's the thing. I've been blessed, so I haven't really dealt with that, but we do have people that have issues that come to us. So number one, the thing where you said blame yourself, please do not blame yourself for that. Don't beat yourself up for it. But instead of going into fear over it, we still listen to, you know, medical people or look for alternative, or you just turn it over and say, spirit, guide me. What is mine to do? What Don't focus on the illness, focus on everything you do have, do what you need to do. And it's like, I mean, it's nothing bad, but I do have that mitral valve issue, and I'll probably have to deal with it. Except I say my string, zing went the strings of my heart. But I'm saying, yeah, but they can grow back. So I would just say, it's hard when you're in pain. I get that, to really be positive and so forth. And I've never had pain where it's 24/7. I mean, I'll get up and walk right now, and my hip and my knees might hurt. But all I would say is focus on the good. Go in, meditate, connect with spirit. Know that you have the power within you. Spontaneous healings happen all the time. Start with affirmations. Really start getting into your subconscious mind that the perfection of who you are, your health, your body, that does not define who you are. Feel that energy of the perfection of who you are, that this is who you are. Don't focus on the illness, focus on that connection, that vision of you be running, doing whatever it is you love to do, knowing that each day, and I know it's hard when you're in that moment, and to do affirmations, I'm whole, perfect, and complete, when you feel like garbage. But every day I'm getting stronger and healthier, and everything flows easily and effortlessly through my body. I am that divine energy, always operating in perfection. I just got God bumps, which means that's what you've got to do. You've got to just keep focusing on the truth of who you are. Do not let your illness define you. Do not let your pocketbook define you. You are a magnificent individual. You are perfect, whole, and complete. Read, constantly be reminding yourself, get good books, you know, Joseph Murphy, The Power of Your Mind. It talks about illness and it talks about what you do. I really would suggest that you get that book.
I'm going to just bring something up, and again, this is me being just me, West kid from West Texas. I think about the example of Dr. Joe Dispenza, and right here in our Coachella Valley, when he was injured during the tour to Palm Springs, knocked off his bike by an SUV at 55 miles an hour, and then told he was never going to walk again. And 6 weeks later, he did, and you'd never know it
He
today.
was in another race, another bike race.
Absolutely. So my question of this is, it's real easy. It could be easy when we have pain to focus on what is wrong. And I think what Dr. Joe Dispenza did is he started using that quiet time where he's laying face down, being told he can't walk. And he started seeing his body in that healed condition, not trying to overcome the pain, but in the healed condition. And I'm wondering, as you talk about that, if as an example, if somebody has a sore shoulder and they've been told X, Y, Z, that they don't focus on, I wish that pain would go away, but see it as a perfect healed organism. And the reason I say that is just recently I watched another one with oh gosh, who is the guy? Anyway, it's in that same genre of people. It said our body has the ability to produce all the chemicals, all the prescriptions we need from within. All we have to do is know it. And so if we have the ability to reproduce whatever we need to do, is that where we need to spend more time, Dr. Laura?
Absolutely. So what Joe Dispenza did, what you said was, I mean, this is how dedicated he was. He was laying on his stomach and he would start visualizing in his mind. He'd start from the top vertebrae, work his way, because he was a chiropractor, so he understood the different vertebrae. I wouldn't know what a C2 or C6, but he knew. And we don't need to know. We can just imagine our spine or whatever we're working on being perfect. And if his mind wandered at all, he'd start all over again and start at the top. And he did that all day long until he had completed visualizing his spine. It's the power of our belief. I think it was Bruce Lipton, maybe who you're talking about, because it's
Yes.
three amigos. It's Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, and Joe Dispenza. They do a lot of things together. And and I think I don't know if I've shared it on this, but Bruce Lipton talked about that person who had cancer, tumors, that they were ready to make their transition. And the guy kept saying, Doc, I know there's got to be a cure. And he said, all right, all right. So he went and then he came back and he gave him a placebo and he has, I think Bruce Lipton's book is called The Placebo Effect.
Yes.
It's what your mind thinks. And he gave him the placebo. The doctor thought it was on a Friday. He thought when he came back to the hospital on Monday, this guy would be gone. And he came back and the guy's sitting up eating and the tumors had shrunk. That's how powerful our minds are. And so, yeah, you don't focus on it being, you focus on the perfection already. You go to the future of what it is that you want to see yourself, and you live from the future and you bring that to the present. What you This is what I'm doing. I'm healthy, I'm running, I'm lifting weights because my shoulder doesn't hurt anymore. And you start visualizing it and feeling it. And I'm telling you too, it's the power of the emotions that have to be added into that, because that gives that thought more power.
Yeah, I think I just want to toss this in and let me know if I'm off base. But we had this one time when we were doing the spirituality in court, and we were talking about the power of being. And I know you're very familiar with this now because you just mentioned Jim Fortin a little bit ago, and it's about a be, do, have, and it really is about thoughts become form. I mean, it's right in line with that. And I think where sometimes we get caught up in this is we want to be healthy and we do it by trying to make the pain go away. And that is not a healing mindset. That
Yeah.
is just a band-aid. In my opinion, that's a band-aid. So it's easy for us to get distracted by the pain we have in our back or our shoulder, whatever part of our body, when instead of seeing that body part perfect and complete. I'll give you a real life example. Yesterday I went to the gym, and I have a little bit of a curvature of spine, and when I do certain exercises, when I get up, my back is really sore, but it's sore because it's straightening my spine. And I look at it as that's good. And the gal that was working with me, bless her heart, she's really nice. She said, well, the reason is because this. And she said, and now when we get back, there won't be any fluid there. And immediately my mind said, my back's going to be fine. There'll be the fluid that's necessary to be there when it needs to be there. That's where, for me, that's the teaching. That's the value of the teaching I've gotten, is like, maybe for you, but not for me, because I can produce anything in my body I need to at any time when I decide that's what I need. And is that right or wrong?
Oh, that's absolutely right. It's like, yeah, no, it's absolutely right. Just because a doctor or somebody gives you a diagnosis or says something, I'm not saying ignore them or whatever, but don't buy into that. Their diagnosis is the truth. The only diagnosis is the truth is the one that you accept. And so, yeah, you do what you need to do, like what Jeff is doing. He's working on strengthening his back and helping it, but he's not going to buy into what she says. That's her truth. That's not, it's like the 3 minute mile, right, Jeff?
That's right.
You
Well,
know,
maybe not the 3 minute mile or the 4 minute mile.
oh, I don't know what it is, but it's some Laura runs a mile in about 10 minutes. So if she's lucky.
It depends on what kind of car I'm driving.
Yeah, exactly. Then, but right, but when the person broke, they said, "Oh, it can never be broken. It can never be." And then when it did, everybody did it. It's the same thing. I believe someday we're all going to be flying with our bodies. When one person does it, we'll all be doing it.
That's so true. Hey, I just want to make sure that we address that question, because I was just looking. It says, any advice on how to move towards acceptance without feeling like it's your fault when it comes to the pain?
Well, number one, acceptance. I
Is
don't
that
know.
really where they want to go? Accepting that?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to accept that I'm in pain, because then I'm going to say that's okay.
Mm,
It's almost like, okay, this is not who I am. What am I going to do? What can I do, spirit, to alleviate this? Don't just accept it and wither away into nothingness. It's get the vision, see what you need to do, and then you'll have it. It's kind of what Jeff was saying. All right, so you're in this pain. Okay, you have to take your pain medication, but study, go to people, go check with homeopath, different, maybe alternative. Read on it. I would say spirit will guide you to the right doctor, to the right situation. And but if it was, I think it was in The Secret or some movie, where this lady had a really bad diagnosis of cancer and stuff, and she just went and rented all these funny movies and just sat there and laughed, took her mind off of what was the diagnosis or whatever, and just felt the energy. You want to build your energy up in your body to get those cells excited. And you don't want to say, be like Eeyore, looks like rain. Don't accept it in that sense. Okay, this is what I've got. This is what they see. I'm going to change it so that they don't see that anymore, and start working on it from the inside, from the mind, from the heart, from the soul.
great. Okay, Dr. Laura. So we're kind of like now nearing present Dr. Laura, but there was a time when you were Reverend Laura. How did you become Dr. Laura? Did you have to go to school? What was that all about? Tell us about that journey.
Well, so again, my court reporting. I owe everything really to my court reporting. So the year that, well, let me tell you about my ministerial test, okay? Because since we just have these ministers. So at that time, I think we had about 7 or 8 of us going up. It was the largest class of Centers for Spiritual Living, well, the Religious Science International, of ministerial students. And Dr. Joe was in that. There were a bunch of us in that class. So we have to go up and get paneled. We've already passed our written test. I did really good. I got 98 or something, did really good in that. And that's what actually made me decide, maybe I'll be a minister. I wasn't even going to be a minister, but I passed the written test. I wow, I did pretty good. Maybe, so I went up to Monterey to take my test. And at that time, Dr. Joe was already on the board of the organization. He was on it. When you become a minister, you can't, at that time, he would have had to step down. But anyway, so anyway, I'm up there and we go and we have our panels. And I had, what happened was there was a minister who had been one of my teachers that there was some political stuff at church and stuff. And I was part of this person leaving and she should not have been on my panel. So I was so nervous. I was like, she should have recused herself from this. Anyway, I walk in and I feel like I have her. And then I have this other one that had oxygen. I mean, this is terrible on my part. I've grown since then. All right, just so you know, I've grown since then. I walk in and there was one and she remind me of Jabba the Hutt, with the oxygen just sitting there. And then there was another minister and I really, this is terrible. This is what I was going through. So, just so you know how your mind can really mess you up. So then I go in and the other one looked like Dracula. He had black slick hair. And when you go in, the first thing they're supposed to ask you is to say a prayer. So you can kind of get centered and focused. And I went in there and I knew I shouldn't have done it. I had a pin on that somebody had given me, one of my friends, and it had a little fairy, but it went really good with my outfit. And something said, you shouldn't wear it, fairies, but I wore it. And then the one that I called Jabba the Hutt was sitting there and she goes, like your pin. And I go, oh, well, it was a gift from a friend. And she said, I didn't ask you where you got it. I just said I liked it. That's how my interview started. So my husband,
Wow.
they don't even ask me to pray. They go, why don't you want your own church? And I go, well, I just don't want, why do you want to be a minister? I said, well, I just want to help Dr. Tom. I'm going to help with outreach and da, 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 da. And I mean, it was awful. I did not pass. I mean, they asked me what the creative process was. I couldn't think about it. Anyway, I didn't pass it. I was the only one in the class there were like 10 of us. I was the only one that didn't pass their panels. And so, but then I had to go back into class and I went and nobody would have known because, I called my son up, in fact, and said, he goes, how'd it go, Mom? I said, oh, everybody passed, but I didn't. He goes, what the heck? Mom's wrong. And I go, I don't know. So they wanted to re-give me my panel because Dr. Tom called right away. He was mad. Dr. Joe was mad because of my panel, who I had. And I said, no, you know what? Truly, I said, if Ernest Holmes himself had been there on that panel, I should not have been nervous. They were right. Should not be a minister. I'm fine. I don't need to do it. And so I went to lunch. And so this is a good lesson for everybody. I went to lunch that day and Reverend Bill said to me, Laura, if the universe offers you a gift, what do you do? And I said, well, you always say yes. And he said, the universe is offering you a gift and you're saying no. And so I went back and I said, thank you. I will take the second panel. And I did. And the rest is history. But that's a really good thing to remember. How many times does the universe offer you something? And maybe it doesn't look exactly the way you thought it should, or what you asked for, and you say no, like the branch, and if you say thank you for this, because you don't know where that's going to lead you. That's going to lead you. And when I redid my panel, it was at a Silmar and it was in the Dolphin Room. And Dr. Maxine Kay was on my panel, Maureen Hoyt, and Sandy. I can't remember Sandy's last name. It's been so many years, Reverend Sandy. And I knew as soon as I did it, I passed and I walked out and I literally felt like I was swimming with the dolphins. Mm-hmm. Whereas the first time I felt like I'd been swimming with the sharks. So when accept every little gift, because you don't know where it's going to lead you.
Such a powerful message, Dr. Laura, because, as you said, I think back in my life, how many times I've had those situations. I'll just give you a specific example. When I was in the golf industry, I used to be a golf professional, and every year with our company, we would have a yearly trip to Pinehurst, and we would take 5 of our members and play. And there were several occasions where I was the guy as the golf professional to go with the members, and I always passed and let somebody else go.
Mm.
And I look back and I'm going, God, what would that had I said yes? Because that's a phenomenal event. There are clubs from all over the country. We had 300 clubs in our organization called Country Clubs of America, CCA, and it was a very prominent environment to go to. And I probably turned it down maybe 5 or 6 times in my career. I was a golfer for almost 25 years, and I think back and I think, wow. And I still to this day, that's a habit that, thank you for pointing that out. It's almost like we needed to have this conversation because, no offense to anyone who's listening, but that was kind of my message. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'll gift that to myself.
Oh, good. Thank you. Well, Jeff, I still didn't answer your question. So then it was at that point, though, at that conference is when Dr. Joe said, Laura, they could use a recording secretary, and he said, I think you should go do it. And that way you can keep an eye on what's going on. And so I said, okay. So I did it up until like 2 years ago. And that's why they gave me my doctorate. Because I felt like I was a historian it was really an exciting time when I started with them, because that's when Religious Science International and United Religious Science, which had started out as one organization and split, they were now coming together again. And so I got to really record all those meetings. I mean, it's going to be in our archives forever, the whole process. So I felt like, back at the time of our Constitution, and if I had been there, I would have got to document all those fights and everything.
That's fun. That's fun. Okay, so that brings you to now, and you said something earlier, said in your panels, that question is, you didn't want it your own church. Was that always your mindset? Is you like being in that situation where you are the assistant minister at Center for Spiritual Living, and you're good with that?
Yeah, I am good with that. Because just let me tell you, I mean, not that I don't feel a sense of responsibility for the center, because I really, I do. I mean, I took off those months when you didn't see me, because I didn't, the finances and so forth. I wasn't getting paid, so I had to work more doing my depositions, and so I couldn't devote as much time. Um, but here's the thing. Yes, there's a lot of burden as the senior minister, because you have this sense of responsibility for all your staff salary, the upkeep of the church, the everything. And I didn't, well, and at that time, maybe if I had been in a different position as far as my children, I didn't want to uproot my children. I knew how much work, because I had been on the board at our center with Dr. Tom. And I just know, everybody that's at church, they're on this side of the wall, and where the kumbaya and the prayers and stuff. But on the other side, it's a whole business. And not that we don't bring our spiritual consciousness there, but there's a sense of responsibility. And then also it's like with, I want you all to know I'm not going anywhere. I know that there was a rumor that I was going with Dr. Joe leaves, that I'm leaving or whatever. And it's true. He is right. There was a little bit of time where I thought, you know what, maybe I'll retire and go live up by my children so I can see my grandchildren all the time. But then I saw my business partner, who has like 3 grandchildren, going to have 4, and she's babysitting nonstop. That is not me. That is not Dr. Laura. I love my grandchildren, but here. Um, and so I thought, why would I go up there where I know no one? I mean, I could always go with the church and teach some classes and stuff, or even just continue doing my Zoom with my people that I have here. But I thought, this is where my heart is, my friends, my community. I mean, I've been in the desert since '76, and I thought, I'm not going to uproot to go somewhere and then be beck and call and not have anybody. So I'm staying. I'm not going anywhere. But no, I don't want to be the spiritual leader. I like being there of assistance, putting my input, but not having that sense of responsibility.
You know, you said something that, and we're getting near the top of the hour. Wow, time flies. We're having so much fun. And again, thank you all for joining us. And if you have questions now, put them in there. If it takes a few minutes after 11, we're not going anywhere. As Dr. Laura said, we're not going anywhere. Um, was that, you said it's about your kids and uprooting your kids and that kind of thing. How much of it, the fact that you had a thriving, growing, going business enter into that, because you already had a business you were in charge of and you thought, do you want a second one?
Well,
Did
we
that
have,
ever enter in?
um, having a second business, being a minister,
Yeah,
having my own.
being the senior minister.
Um, No, I just don't think that, like I said, I never even wanted to be a minister. It even surprised, when people will say Reverend Laura and they go, oh, I mean, doctor. I go, you don't call me Laura. I mean, I don't have that need the title. I don't need that. Um, so I've never been that way. As far as not leaving, when they asked me that, yes, my children were still in school. I mean, they were in high school at that point, but still, I'm not going to, in high school, I'm going to move. Because if I would have taken over church, I'd either would have had to go out of the area or I'd have to start my own church down here. And I'm not going to be wanting to have another church when I already have a church. I didn't need to be in charge. I don't need to be in charge. I like giving my input. You can ask anybody who works in the office. I'm not afraid to give my input, but I don't want that.
Got it. Got
You
it.
know,
Hey, here's a comment from Cool One. She said, this one says, Dr. Laura, your light and knowledge shines upon us. Your talks give me inspiration and bring me back to the truth of our teachings. Wow, that's really nice. It's so true. I thought your service this past Sunday, and I said it to you right after we got done film. I said, I think it's your best talk ever. I was very moved by it. So thank you.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
you kind of stole my last question of, okay, now what's next? When Dr. Joe, he's already kind of made it official. I remember that day like it was yesterday. It was it was like a sledgehammer in the chest, but you know, the transition has been very smooth. How do you see, I'll have to reframe this. How do you see you and Reverend Charles moving the center into this next phase of its history?
Well, I see myself because I've been there at the center for so long, and I feel like I'm the bridge from the past to where we're going in the future, and that's what I wanted. I want. That's what I see myself is. I've got so much awareness, knowing of the past history of this center, and Reverend Charles is going to bring his own vision, his own way of being, but I just want to be there as a bridge and to be there to help him and help our congregation um, through this and beyond. I don't know, but Spirit knows, and I trust Spirit. Spirit knows what's next.
Well, we're happy. We're happy that you're going to stay. And I have to do a little shout out real quick. I just see that Linda Dirks is joining us. I want to say thank you, Linda, because I spoke to her. I don't know if it was last night or early this morning, and I can't remember. She's back in Vermont near the Connecticut River. And she said she wasn't going to make it today because she had a hair appointment. And I know how important that is because the lady in the other room, that she has a salon, my wife, and boy, it's important. It's like we'll move heaven and earth to have our hair done. Yes or yes.
Absolutely.
And for my wife, you do not want to be late. That's disrespectful. So anyway, I want to thank you all for joining us. And Dr. Laura, thank you for being so open and, really just sharing your story with us, because again, that's how we grow. We say, hey, there's somebody that we really look up to. We see that they've already journeyed on that path, and then find out what they did. So it accelerates our growth or inspires us to continue to grow. Any last words or thoughts before we sign off for today?
Never stop learning. Keep growing, because if you're not growing, you're shrinking. So the more that you can partake in our talks, the Sunday service, other places that have inspirational, you'll be guided to your right person, just or the right teacher. Just open up and say, Spirit, I'm open to receive. I know there's an answer. Don't give up. Keep searching, be open. And I'm not, I mean, I got books all over the place here. I'm still reading. So don't stop.
I love it. Hey, before we go, we really appreciate all the support during these last, I don't know, maybe it's almost now 6 months of
Yeah.
this, our new normal, which is we're live every day. You know, I think about it, and Dr. Laura, the center has never been more alive, alert, and enthusiastic than it has been in these last 6 months. And I'm excited about it because it's every day we get a chance to plug in and be part of this. So I really want to thank you. If you feel the same way and you have an opportunity to do this, please donate today. We really appreciate that. And we just really appreciate the support. You can do it with a button down below. If you're watching on YouTube, you can go to our website and there's a donate button on there. We really appreciate it. Tomorrow we have a guided meditation by one of our new ministers, and Sunday, Reverend Charles is back. And I got to tell you again, it is another powerful. Dr. Laura, you
Oh,
jump in.
I stood up. Jeff and I were like the only ones. I stood up and gave him a standing ovation. It was so good.
Yeah. So you got to make sure to do that. That goes live starting at 6 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. It's on demand and you can watch it throughout there. If you like it, do me a favor. Just put a like, click the like. And if you have a comment, we'd love for you to put some comments in there. What that does, it helps our channel grow and allows us to, as you say, Dr. Laura, change lives one heart at a time. And it's another platform for people to find us. I got to tell you, looking from the back end in is the size of our membership. When you count all now the new virtual members, it's almost tripled in size in the last 6 months. So thank you all for being here. Really appreciate it. Dr. Laura, you are an angel. We really appreciate all they do for us. And I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you, Jeff. And I just would like one more comment before we thank you for everybody who wrote sweet notes when I talked last week. That was so nice to hear from so many of you. It warmed my heart. So I just like that reminded me. Thank you.
Yeah. One last thing, I apologize. If you could do me a favor and just take a second today and say a little prayer for, you all know her. She's a backup singer, Gina Harlan. If you could just keep her in your thoughts today and kind of wrap your spiritual arms around her and give her your love. She's going through a tough time right now. And, it's amazing the power of prayer. I'll give you a real quick story. A friend of mine in Scottsdale, 7 years ago on the 5th of August, his wife was going in for a PET scan and found she had, they were finding out if she still had breast cancer after the work. And as she walked through the doors to go get the PET scan, he pulled back and he was incredibly emotional, didn't know what to do. But so he went on Facebook and he asked if they would give a prayer. And in that hour or so that she was in there, he received several hundred prayers. And when she walked out, he was terrified. She wrapped his arms around and said, it was the most beautiful experience I ever had. I don't know what happened. He knew what happened. It's the power of prayer. So please just keep Jean in your thoughts. They really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff. That's true.
All right, everybody be safe. Love the 10 a.m. seminars. Can't go without them. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Arlene, thank you. She says, thank you both. Thank you. Ed likes getting off the table now and then. I just love it. So thank you. All right, you guys be safe.
Do we have to go? Do we have to go? No.
Yeah. Yeah, we have another one starting in 4 minutes and it has nothing. No, just kidding. Thank you all for joining us. Really appreciate it. You know what they say, keep your distance, keep your mask on, and let's put this whole COVID thing at rest.
Amen.